For this crochet project, you're going to need your 4mm crochet hook, as well as a darning needle or tapestry needle, and a pair of scissors. You may need a tape measure if you're going to be sizing your crochet hat. On my blog, www.helenmaycrochet.com, I have free downloads. Just go to the top of my home page and you'll see the button where you just click on graphs for download, and you can download this hat sizing chart for free. So now I'm just going to show you how to size. So this hat will fit between a 3 and 6 month old baby, and you can see how we have the little flower design that matches the flower blanket. And I just wanted to show you that the measurement for this one is approximately 7 to 7.5 inches. So if you go by your chart, if you double it, because this is the head circumference, so this is just half of it, the part that we measured, so double that, and it'll be about 15 inches. So you could see that that's where it would fall for that age baby, for the head circumference. And then you would just make the length that you want for your hat. For mine, it's approximately 6 inches, 6 to 6.5 inches in length. So you can see here that for a 3 to 6 month old or a 6 to 12 month old, it's between that length, but you can adjust that length by using your chart. I'm using my leftover Lion brand yarn, the ice cream colored yarn, for the flower border on the hat. I'm also using my leftover Baby Bee Sweet Delight Pomp Angel yarn that I used for one of my baby blankets, the matching baby blanket. And this is the Flower of My Heart baby blanket matching hat. So now we know that we want a size of about 15 inches, which would give us a head circumference about 7.5. So now that we know that we need 15 inches, you're going to take the yarn style that you're using for your hat, and you're going to go ahead and fold over the yarn to make a loop. Put your crochet hook right through the loop. Hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through the loop for a knot. Go ahead and cinch down that knot and cinch the loop around your crochet hook. Now we're going to make a chain, and we're going to make a chain that measures 15 inches. So to make a chain, you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, 4. So go ahead, make a chain the length of the 15 inches, and then come back. So for mine, I have a chain of 64. So this style of yarn, using this particular crochet hook, I'm going to need 64 stitches to make a head circumference of 15 inches. So when you fold it around, this is the head circumference size. So that's how you measure and determine what the stitch count is that you need for the size of your particular hat, using whatever style of yarn that you're using and the crochet hook that you're using. So this chain size will change depending on the yarn that you use and the crochet hook. So if you're using the same size crochet hook as me and the same style of yarn, you should come up with a stitch count of approximately 64 for the same size baby hat as me. So we're going to start with the white colored yarn, and we're going to start with the magic circle. So you just take your yarn, drape it across your 4 fingers, use your thumb to stabilize, and then wrap the yarn around your 2 middle fingers, and then hold it in place with your pinky and your thumb. Then just take your crochet hook, go under those 2 loops, and then bring up a loop. And then yarn over, and then bring the yarn through the loop for a slip knot. Then you're going to take and make 6 single crochet into the magic circle. Then just take your forefinger and thumb, hold the base of those 6 single crochet, and then you'll have 2 loops on the opposite side. Go ahead and pull on one. If it doesn't close, let go and pull on the other one, but this one's closing. And then take that loose yarn end and then pull on that, and then that will close up the magic circle. Don't worry if you don't completely close it, because you can always close it more later. And then we're going to be working in circles. So for the next round, you're going to be making 2 single crochet into every stitch around, and then you'll be increasing the stitches in the round by doing that. So 2 single crochet into every stitch around, and then that will give you a total of 12 stitches in the round. And then come back. Now you should have a total of 12 stitches in the round. If you need to, you can turn your work over and just pull on that loose yarn end on the back, and then that will close up the center of your magic circle. Then just take a yarn marker, I just use one of my scraps of yarn, and just place it right where you left off. And then we're going to continue our increase rounds, which means we're going to continue to increase the number of stitches in the round. So for the first increase round, you're going to be making 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then 2 single crochet into the second stitch. And then you're just going to keep repeating that pattern all the way around. So 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then 2 single crochet into the second stitch. So go ahead, finish repeating that pattern all the way around, and then come back. So now you should have a total of 18 stitches in the round. Since we started with a magic circle of 6 single crochet, that means that our increases are going to be 6 stitches per round. So after this next increase round, just add 6 to the 18, which will give you 24, and that's how many stitches we're going to have after finishing the next round. So you're going to continue in chronological order. So go ahead and move your yarn marker up, and that means that for this next increase round you're going to be making 1 single crochet into 2 stitches this time. And then you're going to make 2 single crochet into the third stitch. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. So 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the third stitch. So go ahead, finish repeating that pattern, 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the third stitch, all the way around back to the yarn marker. So now you should have a stitch count of 24 if you did it correctly, and you'll know what your stitch count will be before you even do your next increase round. So if you're making the same size baby hat as I am, then you know that we need a total of 64 before we stop and get the size that we want for our baby hat. So for the next increase round, you just move up your yarn marker, and for this next increase round, you should know, because it's chronological order, it's going to be now 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, since our last round was 1 single crochet into 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the 4th stitch. And then you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker, 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the 4th stitch. Repeating that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. Then for the next increase round, it's going to be 1 single crochet into 4 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the 5th stitch. And then I'm going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker, and you can see how I'm making each round in chronological order. So now I'm going to be making 1 single crochet into 5 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the 6th stitch, and I'm going to continue to increase until I get to 1 single crochet into 9 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the 10th stitch. And that should give me a total stitch count of 66, which is really close to the 64 stitch count that would give me a head circumference of around 7.5 inches. And then remember our chain, we made the length of 15 inches because that's what you would need to determine the head circumference, which would be half of that. So now I finished my last increase round, which was 1 single crochet into 9 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the 10th stitch. So if you want a larger hat, you would just keep going in chronological order until you get the stitch count that you want for the size hat that you would like. And then now you're going to move the yarn marker up, and now you're not going to be making any more increase rounds. So that means that you are only going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch around. And when you reach the yarn marker, you're going to leave it in place and continue crocheting in rounds. And every time that you reach your yarn marker, you should still have the same stitch count. So you should maintain the same stitch count. So I finished my last increase round with a stitch count of 66. So now, every time I reach my yarn marker, after making 1 single crochet in every stitch around, I should still have the same stitch count of 66. So for mine, I made 15 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch, and it ends up measuring about 5 inches from the top to where I left off. And for my other hat, I used a different style of yarn and a different sized crochet hook, and you can see that the sizes are the same. So now you know how to size your crochet hat. And for the design, after you finish your 15 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch, you're going to join your new color. So you're going to take your crochet hook, go into the next stitch over, and just bring up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook. And then just bring up your new colored yarn. And then just tie a knot. And then you can cut the previous colored yarn. And then make sure you leave enough of a loose yarn end for burying into your work. And then you're ready to start the brim of the hat, making the design. So we're going to start with a chain of 2. 1, 2, and that's going to, actually we'll make chain of 3. So that'll count as your first double crochet in the round. So chain 3, and then you're going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch around. Go behind the loose yarn ends, bring up a loop, and then complete a double crochet. So 1 double crochet into every stitch around, and I'm going behind my loose yarn ends to bury them. So go ahead, finish making 1 double crochet in every stitch around, And then when you get back to your first chain 3, come back. Then when you reach the beginning, you're going to make a slip stitch into the top stitch of that first chain 3 that you made. Then you're going to chain 3 for the second round with this new color. And that's going to count as your first double crochet for the next round. And then just make 1 double crochet in every stitch around. And then after this round, I'm going to show you how to make the flower, or start the flower design. So again, you're going to be back to where you started, and you just make a slip stitch into the top stitch of the first chain 3 that you made. And then we're going to make our flower, the start of our flower design. So the first thing you're going to do is make a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this counts as your first double crochet, the chain 3, and then the chain 3 space. So now you're going to skip 3 stitches from the previous round and then make a double crochet into the 4th stitch. The yarn over. So you can see the first double crochet and then the chain 3 and then your next double crochet. And then you're just going to repeat this all the way around. Chain 3, skip 3 stitches on the previous round, double crochet into the 4th stitch. So it's a little bit different for the hat. I'm only going to be making chain 3s and no chain 2s like with the baby blanket. So you're going to skip 3 stitches and then double crochet. And that's the pattern you're going to repeat all the way around. Chain 3, skip 3 stitches and make a double crochet into the 4th stitch. And then repeat that pattern all the way around back to the beginning. So when I'm back to the beginning, I have 2 stitches left on the prior round, which is okay. Go ahead and still make your chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you're just going to skip those last 2 stitches and then make a slip stitch into the 1, 2, 3rd chain from your starting chain. To join the round. And then you completed that round. Then we're going to move up to the next round. So you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to make a flower on, you can determine where you would like to have your flowers. So for my hat, I'm going to make a flower into the next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go into the next double crochet from the previous round, and then I'm going to bring up a loop to the height of a double crochet, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over, go into the same stitch, bring up a loop to the height of a double crochet, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over and go through 3. And then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then make a single crochet into the same stitch. And then half of the petal is complete. So now I'm going to make the other side. So I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to make the petal on the other side. So I'm going to yarn over, go into the same stitch and bring up a loop to the height of a double crochet, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the same stitch, bring up a loop to the height of a double crochet, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over and go through 3. And then you have your finished petals for the flower. And then I'm going to skip 2 double crochet. I'm not going to make flowers in those. So what I'm going to do is double crochet into the next double crochet from the previous round. Then I'm going to chain 3, and then double crochet into the next double crochet. And then I'm going to make a flower or a petal into the next double crochet. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around. I'm going to make one more petal with you. So again, I'm going to double crochet into the next one, the double crochet from the previous round, chain 3, and then double crochet into the next one, and then repeat. So go ahead, finish repeating this pattern all the way around, and then come back. So for mine, I finished with the petals, and so I'm going to go ahead and take and slip stitch into the top stitch of the first chain 3 that I made to complete the round. And then I'm going to chain 6 to move up to the next round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then that counts as my double crochet and chain 3. And then you're going to make a treble crochet into the base of the petal from the previous round. So you yarn over twice and then go into the base of the petal stitch. You're going to go right down the center of the petal stitch, bring up a loop, and then complete your treble crochet. So yarn over and go through 2 loops only, and then yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2 loops only, and then yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the 2 remaining loops to complete your treble stitch. Then you're going to chain 3 and then double crochet into the next double crochet from the previous round. And that is how you're going to work your stitch every time you come across the petal stitch from the previous round. So now I have a chain 3 space from the previous round, so I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then make a double crochet into the next double crochet stitch. Then it brings me to my next petal. So I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to make a treble crochet down the center of the petal. So I'm going to yarn over twice. I'm going to go into the base where I made the petal stitch in the previous round, bring up a loop right down the center, and then complete your treble crochet. So yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2. Then you're going to chain 3 again, and then double crochet into the next double crochet from the previous round. And then you have a chain 3 space from the previous round, so chain 3, and then double crochet into the previous round's double crochet. And you're going to repeat this pattern all the way around back to the beginning. Then when you reach the beginning, you're going to make a slip stitch into the 3rd chain of the starting chain, and then you're ready for the next round. So go ahead and chain 1, and then we have a chain 3 space, so you're going to go right into the chain 3 space and make 3 single crochet. And then you're at the top of the stem of the treble crochet for the flower. So you're going to go into that treble crochet stitch and make a single crochet and then chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 10. Then you're going to make a single crochet into that treble crochet stitch for your first chain 10 loop, and you're going to make a total of 3. So chain 10, single crochet in the same treble crochet stitch for my second chain 10 loop, and then chain 10 again. And that's how you're going to make your flowers at the top of the treble crochet stitches. You need 3 chain 10 loops. Then you're going to make 3 single crochet into each of the chain 3 spaces. So I'm going to skip the double crochet, go into the next chain 3 space, and make 3 single crochet. And you're going to repeat that until you get to your flower. So now I'm at my flower. And I'm going to make 3 chain 10 loops into the top of that treble crochet stitch from the previous round. And then repeat. So go ahead, finish all of your flowers and your single crochets in the chain 3 loops or spaces, and then come back. So now you've reached the beginning, so you're going to make a slip stitch into that top stitch of that first chain 1 that you made. And then you're going to chain 1 and then make 1 single crochet into each of those 3 single crochet that you made into the chain 3 space. And then that will bring you to your first flower. So you're going to go into the base of that flower, into the top of the treble stitch, and go into the chain 10 loop, that first chain 10 loop, and then bring up a loop and then make a single crochet. Then you're going to go into the same stitch and then come up through the center chain 10 loop and make a single crochet. Then you're going to go into the same stitch and then come up through the third chain 10 loop and then make a single crochet. Then for each of the single crochet between the flowers, you're just going to make 1 single crochet. And to keep track of your stitches, you know that you have 3 single crochet for each chain 3 loop. So now I'm at the 3 single crochet before the flower. So I'm going to work 1 more flower with you. So now at the flower, you're going to go into the top of the treble stitch and up through the first chain 10 loop. Then bring up a loop and make a single crochet. And then you're just going to make go through the same treble stitch, come up through each of the chain 10 loops, and complete a single crochet. And you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to where you started, and then you're setting up your flowers for the next round. And don't worry, I have the right side facing me, and you might be a little concerned because the flower is pointing towards the wrong side. But what we're going to do is we're going to fold up the flowers to the brim of the hat, and then that will bring it to the right side. So go ahead, finish making your 1 single crochet into every stitch up until the flowers, and then making your single crochet into each of the chain 10 loops. Then when you're back to where you started, go ahead and make a slip stitch into that first stitch that you made. Then you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to go ahead and turn your work. So you're going to turn your work so that your chain 3 loops are facing you, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over, and remember that you'll have 3 single crochets before your flower. Then you're going to take the first loop of the flower and fold it up, and then in the next stitch, so make sure you know where your next stitch is, you're going to go right through the center of the chain 10 loop, bring up a loop, and make a single crochet. So you're kind of pinning the chain 10 loop up in the next stitch. So now you're going to look at your next stitch. That's the next stitch. You're going to make a single crochet, but first you're going to bring up your chain 10 loop so it covers that next stitch, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch. And then in the next stitch, your same thing, fold up the chain 10 loop, and then go into that next stitch for your next single crochet. And then you just finished a flower. Then you just make 1 single crochet into each of the next stitches until you get to the next flower. So I'm going to go ahead and work the next flower with you. So I'm almost up to the next flower. So I'm going to take the chain 10 loop and fold it up over the next stitch, go through the chain 10 loop into the next stitch, bring up a loop, and then make a single crochet. And you can move the chain 10 loop through the single crochet so that it's centered. Find your next stitch, fold up the second chain 10 loop, go right through the center of the chain 10 loop, and then bring up a loop and make a single crochet. And then you repeat it with third chain 10 loop. And then you just completed your second flower. So go ahead, finish making your single crochets and your flowers all the way around back to where you started. You can see the pretty flowers that are forming. Then I'm back to where I started, so I'm going to go ahead and finish my last single crochet and then make a slip stitch into the next stitch to join the round. And then you're going to go ahead and finish off. So just yarn over and make sure you pull enough yarn through to sew the flowers up on the brim of the hat. So now you're ready to fold up the flowers, the beautiful flowers, onto your hat and then sew them in place with your tapestry needle. Then make sure that you have your petals showing too on the hat after you fold it up, and then you're just going to start sewing across the top with the long end that you left for sewing, making sure that you don't mess up the design for the flower. And then you just sew along the top, securing the flowers on the brim of the hat. And then when I'm finished, I just take and tie a knot on the inside. And then you're going to want to take and weave the loose yarn end through the inside of the hat, and just make sure that you don't mess up the design on the front of the hat. And then you can trim your loose yarn end. And then your hat is finished, unless you want to place a pom-pom on the top of the head, which is what I'm going to do. So you can see the beautiful flowers all around your hat. So for the pom-pom, I'm just using my Clover pom-pom maker. And then I'm going to use the rest of my yarn to make the pom-pom. So I just take and place the yarn along the side, and then I take and wrap the arch. Then, once you have both sides wrapped with the yarn, you can go ahead and trim. And then I usually use embroidery scissors to cut down the center. On both sides of the arch. Made this one thick. Make sure you've cut all of the yarn between the arches, and then you can remove those side pieces. And then you just take a piece of the yarn, center it down the center of the pom-pom. This is the yarn that you're going to use to sew the pom-pom onto the hat. And then you just take and tie a knot. Make sure it's secure so that the pom-pom doesn't fall apart. And I usually go through about 3 times. Then you can take and open up your pom-pom. And then you can trim it if you need to. Mine came out pretty good. I don't think it needs to be trimmed. Maybe just a little bit here. And then you can sew it onto your hat. So you just take your tapestry needle and then just go right down the top of the hat with both ends of the yarn. And then you just tie a knot on the inside and bury your loose yarn ends. Now for the yarn that's the same color as the pom-pom, I usually take the loose yarn ends after I tied a knot on the wrong side and then bring them right back through the pom-pom so I can add them as part of the pom-pom. And I bury them that way. Then here are the two hats. I decided not to use a pom-pom for this one. And then this is what it should look like on the inside if you buried your loose yarn ends nicely. For this crochet project, you're going to need your 6mm crochet hook, as well as a darning needle or tapestry needle, and a pair of scissors. First, I just wanted to show you the gorgeous baby blanket that I created. And this one has a separate video tutorial. This is my Crochet My Little Tiny Tulip baby blanket. And you can find the video tutorial on my YouTube channel. And this style is the more difficult style, so if you're a beginner, I would recommend starting with the medium 4 or baby sport yarn. And this is the same pattern using Bernat Baby Sport, and it also turns out really beautiful. So this is again my Crochet My Little Tiny Tulip baby blanket. And once you're able to crochet with the Bernat Baby Sport style yarn, it looks difficult, but this is actually really easy to make using the exact same design, and I just love how it turns out. It's really soft. So I'm going to be showing how to make the matching hat using this style of yarn. So I used 3 skeins to make this baby blanket. And this baby blanket measures 39 inches in length and 25.5 inches in width. So if you want a larger one, I show how to change the multiple on the separate video tutorial for the baby blanket. And all you have to do is just add another skein to make it larger if that's what you want. So with the 3 skeins, this is how much I had left over. So I'm going to make the baby hat using this leftover yarn. So the yarn, if you like this Bernat Pipsqueak yarn, the way it turned out, this is 1 skein. It's one of those cake-like skeins that gives you all of the different colors. And it's from Yarnspirations, Bernat Pipsqueak Stripes. Here's how much yarn is in 1 skein. So it's 260 meters or 284 yards. And here's more information about this yarn. It's actually a bulky 5 yarn. The color of this one is Lullaby, if you like this color. I really like how this one turned out for the baby blanket. So again, for the same size baby blanket as me, with this one, you use 3 skeins, and you're still going to have some left over to make the hat. So I'm going to show you how I made the hat using the leftover yarn. So first I want to go over sizing. And I'm going to use my little model. I love her. She's great. She's a size 3 to 6 month old for baby clothes. And I have the link, if you like this doll, I have the link on my website, www.helenmaycrochet.com, that shows you where you can purchase this doll. So the first thing I do is just measure around her head. So I get about 16.5 inches for the circumference around her head. So then you just want to get the chain to figure out how many stitches that you're going to need for a measurement of 16.5 inches. So you just take yarn over, well, let me start from the beginning. So first just take your yarn, fold it over on itself to form a loop, then take your crochet hook, go through the loop, and then hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and thumb. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for your slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that slip knot down, and then the loop around your crochet hook. And then you're going to make your chain. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then go through the loop for your chain. So count your chains. This is my second, third, fourth, fifth, and then you just continue making your chain until you have the length of 16.5 inches, and that will be the number of stitches that you need for the hat. So for my hat, I know that I want to make at least a 50 stitch circumference. So I should have 50 stitches in the circumference when I stop my increase rounds. So now to get started, we're not going to start with a magic circle for this one, even though normally I would. The reason is because this style of yarn is a lot more difficult to close with the magic circle. So I'm going to use the alternate method. And what you're going to do is take the yarn and just fold it over on itself to form a loop. And then take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. And then you're just going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for your slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down, and then cinch the loop around your crochet hook. But don't make it too tight. You want it fairly loose with this style of yarn. And then you're going to chain 2. 1, 2. Now we're going to make 6 single crochet into that first chain. So take your crochet hook, go into that first chain, bring up a loop, and again, you don't want to make these stitches too tight. Then yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through both loops for a single crochet. So that's your first single crochet. Go back into the same stitch, bring up a loop for your second single crochet. Third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So now I have 6 stitches in the round, and as you can see, it's very difficult to see those stitches. So I wouldn't get too concerned with the actual real stitch count, because there's a big possibility that you're not going to get an accurate stitch count every time. So what I do to increase is I make 2 single crochet into every stitch around. So I don't use my yarn marker for the first one. So now I'm going to make 2 single crochet into every stitch until I get a stitch count of 12. So just make 2 single crochet into every stitch. So that's 2. And then you're going to stop when you get a stitch count of 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now you should have a stitch count of 12. And like I said, it's very hard to make sure that you actually do have a stitch count of 12, but you don't need to worry about that. So just do your best to try to get the accurate stitch count, but I wouldn't get too concerned about actually having 12 stitches in the round. So now go ahead and grab a yarn marker. I just use one of my scraps of yarn, and then just place it right where you left off. And then for this style of yarn, you're just going to keep making 2 single crochet into every stitch around until you end up with the stitch count that you want. So for mine, I determined that I want to stop at a stitch count of 50. So I'm going to keep making 2 single crochet into every stitch around until I have a stitch count of 50. So now I have my yarn marker in place. I'm going to go right into the next stitch, and I'm going to make 2 single crochet, and I'm going to make 2 single crochet in every stitch around, and keep track of your stitch count. So this is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm trying to make 2 single crochet into every stitch around. 9, 10, 11, 12. I should have my yarn bowl, but I don't want to go get it. So now I'm on 18. There's 20. So it looks like I'm right on track. Oh, maybe not. I have 22. And then I'm going to try and go into this last stitch. I think I did get the 24. But like I said, it's going to be tough, and I don't know if I actually did. Now I should have about 24 stitches. Then just take your yarn marker and move it up, and then just repeat the same thing. And then just keep track of your stitch count until you have a stitch count of 50. So I'm going to go again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So go ahead, keep making 2 single crochet in every stitch, and then come back when you get to the yarn marker. So I only ended up with 40 on that round. So I'm going to go ahead and move it up, and then I just keep repeating. Now I have 2 single crochet into every stitch again for another increase round to see if I get to a stitch count of 50 on this round. For this next increase round, I only got a stitch count of 48, so I should be able to make an increase to start and then an increase on the opposite side to get a stitch count of 50 on this last increase round. So now I have a stitch count of 50. So now I'm just going to maintain the stitch count. So you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around. Now if you get back to the start and you're short 1 or 2 stitches, then on the next round you're going to increase, kind of stagger the increases, because if you increase, you always increase here, it's going to make it kind of lopsided for your hat. So always make up for the missing stitches in the next increase round, but try your best to maintain a stitch count of 50 from now on for the rest of the hat. Another helpful hint for maintaining your stitch count of 50 around is, or whatever stitch count that you have, is this is the start point. So halfway is here. So for me, I should have ended up here at about a 25 stitch count, which is exactly what I did. So you can make up for stitches at this point too, because if you have maybe 23 stitches, you can make a couple more stitches to get the 25 before you continue on to the yarn marker. So again, this is the halfway point, and that'll help gauge your stitch count as well. For mine, I remove the yarn marker and move it up every time, and then you can just kind of make notes about, I would mark down how many rounds that you're on so you know how many you've completed. So I was able to complete 11 rounds, and I'm going to go ahead and finish crocheting with my remaining yarn. So I'm just going to continue past the yarn marker and continue to make 1 single crochet into every stitch until I completely use up the yarn. Then when I'm almost at the end, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch over. Just yarn over and then just pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull the remaining yarn through, and make sure you have enough to bury into your work. So for my hat, it just barely fits the baby doll. So I'm going to make, with my white yarn, I'm going to go ahead and make the brim of the hat with using my white yarn. I'm going to show you how I do that. You can use whatever medium 4 white yarn that you want. I'm using this sparkle white colored yarn, and if you like it, it's by Yarnspiration's Karen Simply Soft Party. It's a medium 4 yarn, so you can use whatever white colored yarn that you want that's a medium 4 style yarn, or even a baby yarn would be fine. So I'm going to take where I finished off, take my crochet hook, and I'm still using my 6mm crochet hook, and I'm going to bring up a loop with my yarn and then chain 1, and then you're just going to take and tie a knot. And then you're going to take and chain 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to bury my loose yarn ends as I crochet. So just bring the loose yarn ends over, and then you're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch over, and go behind your loose yarn ends, bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 for a half double crochet. And then you're going to make 1 half double crochet into every stitch around. And then come back. Then when you finish your last half double crochet in the round, go ahead and make a slip stitch into the top stitch of that first chain 2 that you made. And then just yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then you can go ahead and finish off, just yarn over, and then just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then to bury your loose yarn ends, just take your tapestry needle, and then you're just going to weave the yarn through the wrong side of the work. And I like to go back in the opposite direction as well, just to make sure it's nice and buried. And then you can take and trim the loose yarn end. And this is what the adorable baby hat looks like. And again, she fits 3 to 6 month old baby clothes, and it's really soft too, so I really like how it turned out. I just want to show a close-up of the baby hat that you're going to be making, so you can see that you have plenty to make a baby hat. So I used up all of the 3rd skein to make the baby hat, so I have nothing left over. And depending on how much yarn that you have, if you make the same size as me, you should be able to end up at the same point. But if you don't have enough, you can always use your white yarn like I did to kind of add a little bit more length and design to the hat. And again, I have no yarn left over from the 3rd skein after making the hat, but it turned out gorgeous, and it's really soft. I like how it turned out.